Hello, friends. Welcome to Sana's Dialogues. The world in which we are living today is generally known in these strategic circles as the world of changing world order. We are seeing that the entire security architecture of the world is undergoing a major change. Big powers like US are declining, and the powers like China and Russia are coming up. There are changes in various regions. Most recently, we saw a major upheaval in Middle East. We prefer to call that West Asia, but generally it's Middle East. A major upheaval, a security upheaval in Middle East, and that's the war between Israel, US, and Iran. Let's begin with what happened in October 2023. After the Hamas did that brutal terror attack, killing more than 1,000 Israelis, Israel launched a massive retaliation, decimating almost all the proxies of Iran, such as Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis. We thought that, finally the things would end and there would be peace. But then the Israeli security calculus always believed that as long as Iranian regime continues its nuclear program and also goes on with its ambition of destroying Israel, guided by religious motivations, Iran will continue to be an existential threat to Israel. So for them, it was a survival condition to destroy Iran's nuclear arsenal and nuclear program. Finally, in June 2025, Israel and the US attacked Iran. Very soon, Israel was dominating Iranian skies. Americans raided Iranian nuclear sites with their bunker busters and claimed that they had destroyed Iranian nuclear program, nuclear stockpile, or at least reversed it by several years. But then I think they knew that they had not achieved their aims. Finally, in Feb 2026, once again, the Israelis and the Americans launched a final decisive attack on Iran. There were a lot of disagreements before that. The CIA did not agree with the idea of invading Iran because in their calculations, the regime change was not possible. But finally, at the last moment, they decided to invade, in which Israel played a crucial role. And also the fact that they got an intel that Khamenei was organizing a top-level meeting in Tehran. Trump thought that that was the best occasion to destroy and eliminate Iran's top leadership. And also, they thought that by eliminating the top level leadership of Iran, they would be achieving a regime change. But here's where they failed. They failed to visualize Iran's resilient defense system and political system. We were almost shocked. I mean, by the way, Americans and Israelis executed a 12-day war in 2025 and also killed the top level leaders of IRGC and the political leaders and also the top level operatives of Hamas and Hezbollah. Everyone thought that subduing Iran in a proper full-fledged conventional war was just a matter of a few hours, for the Americans and Israelis. But that did not happen. Iranian had designed their political system and their defense system in such a manner that they had systems to replace the top level leaders in the situation in which they were killed. And the Mosaic defense system also was created in such a manner that the local IRGC units had complete autonomy to design, to plan, and to strike at its own will. So after 40 days of war, we see that the regime change has not taken place. Though Americans and Israelis have done massive destruction, inflicted huge damages on Iranian civilian infrastructure, military infrastructure, bridges, schools, colleges, and it'll take decades for Iran to come back to the pre-war levels. But still, Iran has not surrendered. Iran also sustained a major defensive posture and also attacked all the American allies and American bases in the Gulf region. Iran also rained and sent its drones to Israel and bombed several cities in Israel. So we can say that Iran has not been defeated, and the status quo that we have achieved after 40 days of war has led to a ceasefire which is at the most shaky and unstable. So today, after 40 days of this war, both the parties have agreed to a ceasefire, finally, with the mediation of China and Pakistan. But when we go through the provisions of the ceasefire, it looks rather shaky and unstable. Americans have demanded a complete end to Iran's nuclear program, complete end to its enrichment, and also severing all ties with its proxies, stopping all kinds of support to its proxies, and also controlling its missile program, which acted as a major deterrent in this recent war, and also bringing down its military capabilities and other military related programs such as the drone programs, etc. But it's highly unlikely that Iran will agree to that. In return, Iran has also made several demands. Iran is saying a complete withdrawal of all the sanctions and allowing Iran to pursue its nuclear program. Though Iran says that it's not going to, let's say, get into a nuclear weapon kind of a thing, but then it wants to continue its peaceful nuclear program, in which it cannot be trusted. But this is going to be a major area of friction. Also, Iran wants America to withdraw all its military bases from the Gulf region. Now, given all these demands, which definitely as a security analyst, I'll call them very unrealistic and totally at odds with each other. Certainly, Iran is not going to end its ties with the proxies. Also, Iran is not going to end its nuclear program. Thirdly, Iran wants a control over Hormuz and wants to tax shipping that goes through Hormuz, which is a major red flag for the global economy and a matter of concern not just for the Americans and Israelis, but for the entire world. Iran says that it's going to levy a tax of $1 per barrel, and that too in yuan or other currency, other currencies other than dollar, which is certainly going to completely disturb the American calculus. And also, Americans are not going to agree to withdraw from the Gulf. Now, for the American allies, let's talk about the American allies. American allies, that includes the Gulf countries like Egypt, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi, UAE. They are highly disturbed and they are highly unnerved with what Iran has done. Iran destroyed their civilian infrastructure, their airports, and also their military infrastructure. Though American air bases and American defense systems could not guarantee a complete security. But now, in fact, these states have become highly insecure and they've become, they're totally, I would say, skeptical about Iran. I've spoken to many analysts and scholars in that region, and they're saying that the Iranian regime is very dangerous and they cannot trust this regime in the future. This massive distrust and suspicion prevails. Now, in such a scenario, what is the most likely course for these countries, Gulf countries? Most likely, they're going to build their military infrastructure, their armies, and that certainly requires a stronger American presence in that region and also American support, American military support, technological support. So I think that the dependence on the Americans is going to get much stronger. Another recourse that they have is to basically open back channels through China or maybe through Pakistan. But they know that Chinese and Russians are in the Iranian camp. So any kind of back channel that they try to open through China, Russia, or Pakistan will not ultimately favor their interests. Secondly, they cannot even depend on the Chinese or Russian weapons because Chinese and Russians have a robust relationship with Iran. And certainly in case if they try to cultivate that defense partnership with the Chinese and Russians, they fear that it's certainly going to be compromised. So for them, the most likely recourse is to get closer and to build, I would say, firm defense ties with the Americans. Again, with the Israelis, now Israelis are not in agreement with the Americans regarding the ceasefire. Israelis they're continuing bombing Lebanon and they're continuing their invasion and their aggression, their war with Lebanon. Iran has made objections to that, and in return, Iran has also done retaliatory strikes. So it seems that Israel will also not be very happy with the ceasefire. Israel is not going to trust because Israel feels that Iran is an existential threat. As long as the regime is guided by religious considerations and regime vows to completely eliminate Israel from the face of earth. So that's again a problem with the Israelis. So certainly they're not going to agree to this. We know that, after this war, Americans have lost popularity, they've lost credibility in the Arab world among both the population, the general population of, I would say, Gulf countries, and also Iran and the other Muslim nations, and also among the dynastic regimes of Middle East. Among the dynastic regimes of Middle East, they've lost credibility because their defense systems could not provide that support which the dynastic regimes and monarchs expected. Among the people, we know that in the most of the Gulf countries, even going against their monarchs and their dynasties, the people, the general society continues to follow Islamist ideals, and they have a domination of, I would say, overwhelmingly large Islamist and radical segments in their society. So they were never comfortable with the American presence and the American, I would say, the relationship with their dynasts and with their monarchs. So Americans have lost credibility. But then again, having said that, I would like to say that now it's even all the more important for Americans to stay in that region and continue to keep a continuous check on this regime, on the Iranian regime, because most likely after this ceasefire, Iranian regime will try to rebuild its military infrastructure, rebuild its nuclear program, and certainly it's going to add to the tensions and frictions in that region. Also, we see that with what happened recently in the Middle East, the Chinese and the Russian presence and Russian, I would say, and Chinese, their status, their stature in the Middle East has certainly grown up. So that is again a matter of concern for the Americans. So now, what is the future trajectory of Americans in that region? Certainly, Americans cannot withdraw because the security situation is very tight. But they should not repeat the mistakes of 1991. After the 1991 war with the Iraq, again in that war also they failed to completely dislodge the regime, and they after that they made it some kind of an objective, a declared stated obsession to remove the regime, and they made a very difficult and a very I would say contentious presence in that region, which led to the rise of many Islamist organizations against them, also led to their unpopularity because of their obsession with the regime change. In this case also, this looks a very likely scenario, but I think Americans should be more sensible right now, and they should try to negotiate a ceasefire, some sort of a permanent peace arrangement in which sanctions relief should be based on compliance with the American demands, on compliance with the some objectives like let's say ending the nuclear program, severing ties with the proxies. They should not be very obsessive about the idea of regime change, because that looks very unlikely. And if they continue to pursue with this very aggressive military posturing in this region with the objective of regime change, after 14 days, I guess they'll be exposed more and more, and their weaknesses will be laid bare. And mind it, this is not the time when Americans are the sole superpower in the world. There are a lot of other contenders. So I think Americans at this stage, they need to be much more accommodative, much more pragmatic, and they need to negotiate a final lasting diplomatic settlement based on the conditional withdrawal of sanctions. And that's what I guess seems to be the best course right now. And thank you very much.